guys, and welcome to Sarah Shop Creates. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful mermaid scale Milky Way. If you look up close, you'll see the distressed mermaid scale foils on there. And I used most of the items from the PDB Creative Studio Art Resin Box Volume 6. So I'm going to link all of those below. And then I also used a few extra supplies from PDB that'll also be linked below. One of the very first things I'm going to have you do if you're following along is base paint your tumbler. I recommend an airbrush machine or spray paint, and you are going to do it obviously in a deep purple and an aqua. And you'll see here in a second how what mine looks like after it was spray painted, but unfortunately I did not record that part, but I'm sure most of you can figure that out. So I'm obsessed with this. Let's get started. All right guys, now let's get started. So I'm going in with adhesive apothecary glitter glue. Fun fact, we got a little sample size of this in our art resin box, or you can just buy it straight from the company itself. And I'm putting a nice even coat on my whole tumbler. I'm starting in by going in with Caspian. That is one of the glitters that came in the art resin box. And I'm just following the color pattern that I painted with and sprinkling that glitter right on there. This is a chunky mix and I'm obsessed with it. And then we're going to go in with Ursula. This was another color from our art resin box, and this is more of a chunky, deep, dark purple. Now, as you can see, those colors didn't blend too great together, but I have a plan for that, so just trust me. I grabbed a little bit of Goddess by PDB. It's more of a fine mix in my opinion, and I use that to help blend the mint and the purple. And then I went in with Lilac, a fine mix from PDB, and I used that to kind of also blend those colors together. I do think that using these finer mixes on top of what I already did really helped bring the whole tumbler together and cleaned up any harsh lines of glitter that I had from the first two colors. So I definitely recommend grabbing those two glitters as well if you are following this tutorial. Now we want to pat our chunky glitter down so that it's a little bit easier to epoxy and we don't have to sand much in the end. And I'm using parchment paper. I learned this technique from Swery Kim herself, and it has saved my butt on so many tumblers. Look how much better that turned out. We're going to let that glue dry for a couple hours, and then we're going to epoxy this twice so that it's smooth enough to do our Milky Way on. Now for the fun part. I'm using Ccdiy Fast Set because I had to get this tutorial done and ready for Monday morning. So I am mixing together equal parts of part A and part B, and I am going to mix those together. Come on, Alyssa. I always mix more than I need to. I would say that I mixed about 2 ounces of this so that I had enough left over to add my color additives. But I will say that was probably too much, but that's okay. Once they are equally mixed, we're going to apply that to our tumbler with a nice semi-thick coat. Not super thin, but you don't want to like drench your cup. We need this epoxy on here to help flow our Milky Way colors together. So nice thin coat, and now we can start splitting up our epoxy and adding our color additives. So I'm splitting the rest of my epoxy into 3 little portion cups, and I am using Ready to Pop in one of them, Baptiste in another, and then the Kraken chameleon powder that came in my art resin box. That one was a little bit harder to kind of shake into there, but it did give it a really cool effect. Shake, 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 shake. Now that they were all mixed, we're going to apply this to our tumbler. I don't use any heat with my Milky Ways. I drizzle all 3 colors on, and then you'll see I actually just spread it around with a gloved hand. And I love this so much better. I've been making Milky Ways for a while, and I started out doing Milky Ways with a heat gun, and I just felt like the colors blended and just kept spinning together too much. And I think this method is way better. So take a gloved hand, spread them around until you're happy, and then walk away. Don't baby it. You have to walk away, let it cure, and I am sure that the results will be amazing. Look how beautiful this is. That right there is the Kraken mica powder that I'm adding now. So I just added a little bit of that just so I can say that I used it from the art resin box, and I spread that around as well. Listen, I never thought I'd love these 2 colors together so much, like the deep purple and the aqua mint teal vibe, but I'm obsessed with it. So we're going to keep spreading that around, and then I'm going to let this dry for about 2 hours because I'm using fast set epoxy. Look how beautiful. I'm obsessed. We just need to take in this magic before we go to the next step. All right, guys, now that that's dry, we're going to play with some of these foils. I have to say this first before I continue. I didn't know how to use these, and I had to call Sweary Kim and ask her, and she helped us, so everybody thank Sweary Kim. So these foils came in the art resin box, and I cut them into little squares. I'm using this foiling glue. I'll find it on Amazon and link it below. And I'm taking a paintbrush and I'm spreading it around in a little area. And then I'm going to hit it with my heat gun. Fun fact, I got this heat gun in the art resin box. Literally, we're using so many things for about 5 to 10 seconds. I want to say it was like 10 seconds because I didn't know how long to heat it up. But after that glue kind of dried and it's pretty much clear, we're going to lay that little foil piece right over it. I can't believe how amazing this turned out. And I'm going to take a squeegee and I'm going to use a lot of pressure and rub it down in place. Now, keep in mind, I'm going for a distressed look here, okay? I'm not looking for that perfect adherence. I think I just made that word up, but that's okay. So, rub it in place, and then I'm going to take an X-Acto knife to kind of peel that up. And I got pretty much the perfect results, but I was thinking that some of those lines are a little too harsh. So I grabbed a Q-tip and rubbing alcohol, and I just kind of distressed it a little bit more, and it turned out exactly how I imagined it would. So I put these spots randomly all over my tumbler. I would say each spot is probably about 1.5 inches big. So I just kept cutting squares, putting the glue on, hitting it with my heat gun, rubbing it in, peeling the foil up, and then distressing it with the Q-tip and rubbing alcohol. So you can use as little or as much of this as you want, but I used a good bit on my tumbler because I thought it was super cool and it just matched the whole aesthetic of the cup. I'm so happy with this art box, just so you guys know. There's another one. We're going to clean that up a little bit. And I think I show myself doing one more. So I'm going to repeat my process again. Glue, spread around, heat gun for 5 to 10 seconds, place that foil on, rub it really good, peel with the X-Acto knife, and if you're not happy with the results, take a Q-tip and kind of distress it around a little bit. I definitely need more of these foils, just so you guys know. All right, awkward pause because you guys know that's how I record my videos. All right, there we are soaking in all of that mermaid magic. Now it's time to do the drip, the best part. I use fast set epoxy for this, Ccdiy fast set. I mixed equal parts of part A and B. So now I am putting them both in the same cup and I am mixing it together thoroughly. Now, I used my airbrush paint to color this because I didn't have anything else, but grab a deep purple paint. You only need a drop or two and mix that together. I also added Moody mica powder to this to give it a little extra shimmer and to deepen that color a little bit more, because if you add too much paint to your drips, it's going to get really gummy. Now, I'm adding about 4 teaspoons of Ccdiy Nice and Thick. I do 2 teaspoons, mix it up really good, and then I do another 2 teaspoons. I like it to be really thick. I like my drips to be dimensional, short, and thick versus really long and runny. So you need to have your epoxy really thick in order to get the perfect drip. Now, look, I angled you guys right for this. Aren't you happy? I take some on my popsicle stick and I spread it around my whole rim and I let it drip itself from there. I'll take a little bit and kind of scrape it against the rim if I need to, but this specific drip fell so perfectly, I didn't really have to force any drips. So put some on your popsicle sticks, scrape it against your rim, and let us do this magic. If you thickened it enough, it will not run the whole way down your cup. And I think that's the hardest part, is kind of knowing when your epoxy is thick enough. All right, now we're going to take the little sprinkles that I got in the art resin box and I'm going to kind of scatter them all over my drip. I will say I waited about 20 minutes before doing this process because I wanted the drip to be thick enough to where these sprinkles wouldn't just weigh it down, but also still wet to where they would stick. So I definitely recommend waiting 10 to 20 minutes before applying your sprinkles, or else they'll just kind of fall down your cup with the drip. So I'm using some of the seashells and some of the little pearl balls. And then we didn't get to that part yet. Please hold. We're going to get there. We got these little like crushed glass seashells in the box too. And I wasn't sure how I was going to incorporate it into the tumbler, but you'll see here in a second that I actually broke them up and put them on my drip as well. And I thought it looked pretty cool. So here we are. They are sharp, so please be careful. I don't know what to tell you other than just be careful with them, but I broke them up into smaller pieces and I put those on my drip as well, and I thought they were really cool. So now that the drip is dry, I waited about 2 hours for the drip to dry. We're gonna put we're gonna put another layer of epoxy on. I'm mixing some of the Chroma flakes into this epoxy, and I am putting a thin layer over the whole cup because I still need to add a decal. The reason why I didn't add the decal before is because I wanted it to be on a nice smooth base. I didn't want all those foil flakes and glue to kind of mess with my decal. So I knew that if I put a thin coat of epoxy on this, then it would be perfectly ready for the decal. All right, guys, now let's get our decal. This was also in the box, and Gracefully Created said they will release these decals here in probably a week or two, so I'll link her website below. So I peel the backing off and place it right on there, and then because we're extra, I got these charms in the box as well, and I took my boyfriend's tool, I don't know what they're called, don't judge me, and I cut the hoop off of them because these are charms, so they have like a hoop for jewelry, but I cut those off because I really wanted to apply them to my tumbler. And I did that with Liquid Fusion. I just did 2 of them. I did a small drop of Liquid Fusion. Fun fact, oh, yep, it was clogged. It's fine. A small drop of Liquid Fusion, and I put my little charms on there, and I let those dry for about 20 minutes. They were so cute. I love them so much. So I put one on the top right of the decal, and then one kind of on like the bottom left of the decal. Now I'm adding these little tumbler tags I got from Missy's Doodles. This doesn't have to be a part of the tutorial. I just wanted to show you that I was adding it to mine because I think they're really cute. And I also did that with Liquid Fusion. Whew, this is a lot. Now that, look how pretty that is. Now that that's all dried, we're going to put our final layer of epoxy on. This epoxy is Ccdiy medium viscosity. I don't like to use facet as my final layer, and I really like how thin this epoxy is. So I'm doing equal parts once again of part A and part B, and I'm adding a little bit of fairy dust mica powder from PDB Creative Studio. Fairy dust just gives a little extra sparkle, but I will say you do not need a lot. Like when I tell you a little goes a long way, if you ever listen to anything I say in life, listen to that, because I've added too much of this and my cups look a little crazy. So mix that thoroughly, apply it to your cup, use a torch to pop any air bubbles, and then you're going to want to let that dry. Personally, I let this dry for about 12 hours, and then I was able to kind of pick it up and take pictures of it. Look how cute! I'm sorry. I'm 100% obsessed with this cup. Thank you, guys. All right, guys, and she is pretty much done. That last layer of epoxy was cured. I'm going to clean up my rim a little bit. Remember that a lot of the contents of this cup came from the PDB Creative Studio Art Resin box and may or may not be released on the website at a future date. If there are some things left over, maybe they'll be added to one of the upcoming What's New Wednesdays, or maybe they won't, but let me know if you have any questions on this cup, and thank you for watching.